All right, another Monday morning back on board this boat, working on the heads. So this uses a pressure vacuum system. So this is a solenoid valve and a solenoid valve. This one goes up forward to the forward head. This is the midship head, which is right there. And it just kept on running and running and running. And so I figured it was the solenoid, which it was when I checked the solenoid, which I just ripped all this down again. But that solenoid right there was completely melted and shot. So I was like, oh, that's the problem there. The whole valve body's like $300. The solenoid was like $100. I tried switching it over using local stuff, but this is a 12-volt system, and what I had was a 24. I tried to get a converter, not thinking, usually I go from like 32, 24 to 12. This is 12 volt and it was 24, so I can't, that's going back up. So it didn't work. Anyway, long story short, and if it seemed like it was, so I just got the solenoid and it seemed like it was working. That should have been it. And the toilet just kept on flushing. I couldn't figure it out. Well, thinking about it, like, what makes water go in there? Well, it's a solenoid. So the switch worked fine. I checked that. The solenoid is brand new. That should be working. I checked the power in the box, which is right here. That was working and getting power. So, like, what else is there? So inside of here, there's a tiny little orifice, little hole inside the diaphragm that goes to the solenoid, which is the pressure, which senses the pressure. So this is all raw water. So I'm thinking to myself, I'll bet you that little tiny little orifice got clogged with something, debris, sludge, whatever. So I just ripped this entire valve body apart, took all 6 screws. It's not like it's that big of a deal. Cleaned the whole assembly, put it back together again, and sure enough, it pressurized and it stopped, which was the first great sign. And then I flushed the toilet, it flushed, and it stopped. So that's it. It's back working. We're going to remount this back on the wall so it's secure and it looks halfway decent. We've rewired everything into the box like it should be. This is here because I had to make one more turn around this. Matt didn't tighten it down all the way, so we'll fix all of this in a second. But that's done for the day. I don't have to go through and figure out all the wiring again. Simple little things. So stop and think about it and think how things work, and then figure out, you know, what to do, what to try. No, that's brand new. Not they work all the time, but I got to assume that the solenoid is working. The next step would be it's not sensing the pressure on the system. So it led me to the diaphragm, clean diaphragm, and it works. So that's it. It's 9 o'clock. I finally figured this. I was thinking I'd be here all freaking day. So that's good. We're going to be done and off this boat. This wraps up 2 air conditioning installs in the pilot house and in the salon, as well as fixing and sourcing and rewiring the entire bow head and all these switches down here. So this boat is done, knocked off the list, and we're going to bill it out. All right, I didn't do any of the training. We did another 2 hours with them. He's got it down pretty good. I totally forgot. I've been in such a rush today. I'm flying out tomorrow. So we're on the 90 Broward right now, and we've been redoing all of the head hoses and stuff like that. We've had a small leak in the bilge, and we just disconnected this, which is the Fernco PVC to metal, and underneath me, this is the, I'll do it the right way, that's the tank, the Blackwater tank. And if you look, there's a lot missing there. So that's probably why it's been leaking. And we got a new hose coming over here, and I've got to get that connected onto here. So Matt's on his way down. So that's what we're going to try and do. Okay, 1 down, 1 to go. So just heated that up to about 700 degrees, and it finally slipped on there. So it's on there real tight. We got 1 hose clamp on it. So now I'm just preparing this one that's got the hole in it. So I'm going to scrape it down with some sandpaper, get it cleaned up, wipe it down, and then I'm going to put some fiberglass on it to make basically a new tube. This is a stopgap measure that we're doing till we can get up to the yard and get this entire tank cut out and pulled up and redone. So I've got to create a tube right there. So, yep, one down. And then Matt did a nice job of all that stuff right there. All new fittings from there. And then that goes to the over discharge, and then underneath that's the pump, and then that fitting right there goes to the Y valve. So we're not actually discharging overboard. It goes to the tank. So, all right, so we're about time to do the fiberglass work. And again, this is just a stopgap maneuver just to get us to the boat yard so we can basically redo this tank, but this will prevent anything from leaking down into the bilge. So fiberglass resin and fiberglass. So this is fiberglass, and so is this. This is what we call chop. It's bi-directional, so it's in all different directions. And you use this for general layup in between larger layers of woven, which is really thick stuff. So very utilitarian, diverse type stuff that you can use. And then this is a finished glass. You see how smooth it is, and this is going to give us a nice finish. So I'm going to use this just because it's going to be giving me a better finish than the chop. I've cut out and mocked up 3 different pieces, 1, 2, and 3. So you got to build your fiberglass up in layers. Otherwise, it's not going to wet out properly. And you know, if it wets out properly, and what I mean by that is when you wet one side and wet the other side, is that it's clear all the way through. Regardless of what you're doing, even woven, or this chop or anything else, you shouldn't see the white anymore of the fibers inside the fiberglass. If you still see the white in the fiberglass, then you haven't gotten the right resin fiberglass ratio, and it's either going to be too much or too little, and it's not going to be as strong as it should be. So you want to try and wet it out properly. So there's a tiny little hole down in the bottom. There's it's a hole. It's a decent sized hole actually underneath there. And I showed you before, the whole thing is all rotted away. But beyond being rotted away, all the way up by the joint, there's a tiny little hole in there. So I'm going to plug that first with this tiny little piece, because like I said earlier, we're going to build it up. Then this is a bigger piece that will wrap around, and then I'm going to do a finished piece which will take up the entire length of the pipe. And so by having these 2 structures here, that should, once it's set up, should give me enough strength to wrap a Fernco around it. And that's what was on there before. We're using PVC right here to steel. And so a Fernco is basically a plumbing part that joins 2 dissimilar sizes as well as different materials, such as PVC and a metal, or ABS and PVC, or something to copper or whatever, iron. A lot of times in the older homes, you'll go from iron to copper to PVC or something like that. And so you'll use Ferncos for those joints. So that's what these things are used for. Again, we don't typically see them or use them on a boat or a yacht like this, but that's just the way it's done. There is a lot of commercial applications on this boat, and so this just being one of them. I don't know who did the PVC, but that's what we've got to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. So I've already put, just again, stopgap, cheap Bondo fiberglass resin. I've got my hardener right here. The majority of this has spilled over my truck, in the back seat of my truck, which is always good. So there's a hole in here somewhere. Like I said to you last time when we were doing primer, and I think we were doing some fiberglass work, is that the temperature, the ambient air temperature, is going to determine how much of this I put in. The more hardener I put in, the quicker chemical reaction I'm going to have. The hotter this is going to get, the quicker it's going to pot up. So I'm trying to figure out, I can measure it out, but a couple of drops or whatever for what I've got in here will give me enough working time to wet all this stuff out, install it, and let it harden up, and me finish the project before it's coffee time. So I'm going to put a couple of drops in here so we can come out. The whole thing is shot. It's just breaking. So let's just see where it's going to leak from. There we go. Put that back on. This whole container's shot. So now I've got this is a chip brush. Again, there's a lot of different things you guys can do it differently, but this is just down and dirty type stuff. I'm not doing finished fiberglass work on a boat or anything like that. So I'm just gonna come in here, just mix this up. And then I'm just gonna wet out one side here. I found a piece of Lowe's bag. And you can see as I wet it out, it starts to go away and turns translucent. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. So this is going to be my first piece that I put on underneath here. That's going to block up that hole. Fiberglass piece number 2. And you're wetting out one side, and then typically you'll go ahead and wet out the other side. That way you get a good coverage on both sides, and you're not trying to get the resin through both sides of the glass. And you got to work pretty quickly because this will set up pretty quick. You can see this is just about translucent right here. So I'm going to wrap that, and I'm going to put my good side on the bottom here, wrap it up underneath. Make sure it sticks nice and good. So now I'm starting the structure that's missing underneath. So there's one. And then my last and final piece here before we pot up. And the longer you keep it together inside the bucket, the quicker it's going to set up. So if you get it wetted out, there's not as much chemical reaction going on, so you have a slight bit more working time with it. You can see it's just turning translucent throughout the whole thing. Down and dirty. And once it's translucent, no surprise there, I'm right in the middle of something and my phone is ringing. And this is going to be the last piece I put on right here. You can see, you can almost see through it. That's kind of what you're looking for. So the last and final piece right here. Get it on nice and tight. If you're a deadhead like me, you also get a cheap high doing this, just so you know. So, you know, I'm fully drug tested, so I can't do much anymore. Make sure it doesn't stay on the PVC. That's pretty much it. So that covers that, and it's going to adhere and make a nice seal around the fiberglass, so then we can put the Fernco back on it. So we're going to let this set up here, and I usually leave whatever left in the pot just to verify that it will set up. So, and I know that if it's pot up in here, it'll pot up in on there. So we're going to give this just a little bit to harden up, and then we're going to try and sand it down, prep it, and then put the Fernco back on. So that's it for the dirty stuff. Okay, so the name of this channel is Working Captain. So heads, and more heads, and then also ACs. So if you want to be a captain, you got to know how to work on air conditioning and heads. So we just had our first clients of the year on board the boat, and they have literally smoked already one of our head pumps. So I'm doing a video right now that I'm editing, and I've got a whole litany of pumps, head pumps that I'm working on. And I took a couple pictures of this pump actually ripped apart and what was inside of it. So I figured I'd come down into my garage here and show you what the pump actually looks like and how it works. So on a boat, there's many different types of head pumps. On this one, this is a galley made or Raz Marine, really old school, big motor here, and this turns both the injection side, which is the business end, and then also the water side right here. So water comes in here with a little boot on the inside of here, gets pumped out here to the head, and then on this side is the discharge side. You can see all the stuff in there. It comes out here, it gets macerated through here, and then discharges out to the tank through here. So what our clients did is they flushed a towel down the toilet. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried flushing a towel down the toilet at your house. I don't know why you'd ever do that, but apparently that's just something that you do on a boat, even though we tell you not to do it because it's going to clog immediately. Now, they say it worked all weekend long. I'm telling you, I do this every day. If you put a tampon, if you put something that did not go in your mouth down through one of these things, it will clog instantly. And they tried flushing it so much that they actually burned out the motor. So when we ripped all this apart, and you'll see the pictures of the towel that they threw down there, it actually burned up the motor. So I had to pull the motor out, or pull the whole pump out and buy a new one, and we just finished installing that. So I don't know if you can look on the inside of there. See that big metal thing? That's the grinder. And so that's what the towel was around. Now, once a towel gets stuck in there, there's nothing else that's going to go through here. Nothing. Not water, nothing. So you've completely plugged it up. Same thing if you put tampons or massive amounts of toilet paper down there, it will not go through this boot, because there's a worm gear in here, and it goes through the worm gear in the outside boot, and that's what macerates it and crushes it up to put it through this side here, and then this feeds your fresh water. So this is a 32 volt system. They're like $1,200-$1,400 down at Raz Marine down in Fort Lauderdale. They've taken over the galley made, so you can see everything's got Raz Marine on it, but galley made pumps. So I can send this out and get it rebuilt, but it really wasn't that old in the first place, and we just serviced it. We just put all brand new boots, not only on the discharge side, but the supply side as well. So, and a new worm gear on here. So this is pretty toast. So I'm gonna go back inside. I will finish editing it. So now you know what we're looking at when I show you that. And then I've got 2 other head systems that we're working on right now. So this will end the video and end the segment for marine heads. Now, if you guys want to know anything else about marine heads, leave a comment. If you guys want to see something else, let me know. We do 8,000 things, so I'd like to know what you guys want to see, and we'll we've got enough boats. We'll take care of it and show you how to do it.